Released Tim Tebow, who is trying to make a return to the NFL as a tight end. Tebow tweeted just shortly ago, thankful for the highs and even the lows, the opportunities and the setbacks. I've never wanted to make decisions out of fear of failure, and I'm grateful for the chance to have pursued a dream. Stephen A., talk to me.
Well, like I told you at the beginning, I'm really sad for him because on a personal level, I mean, I know I joke around about him being a friend, but he is a friend, and he's a really, really good guy. We all know him here at the network where he does an outstanding job for us. And he's the real deal in terms of his kindness, the kind of man, the kind of person that he is. It's not an act. He truly is that person. He's that guy. And I got a lot of love for him. And I just wish him nothing but the best. But in the same breath, we have to be real about what we saw. He never played the tight end position in his life before trying to do it on the NFL level. And it showed. He couldn't block. That was really, you got to be able to block at that tight end spot. And you saw people in the NFL tweeting about it because it was their way of highlighting, look, man, we're not trying to hate on the guy, but he wasn't qualified to do this job as a tight end because he never did it before. You don't just come into the NFL and do something you never did, and especially if you had an 8-year layoff from the sport. And that's what, essentially he was trying to accomplish. So it's not a surprise.
I think this is how it goes. This is why the reaction to Tebow getting the opportunity in the first place, I understand, and by the way, maybe it's tied into white privilege or some kind of adjunct to white privilege, something related to it maybe. Okay, his former college coach. He's a national champion. He's from the area. He's very famous and very well liked. And they didn't give him a job. They gave him an opportunity. And Stephen A., I think it's very difficult for people to get upset at someone who accepts an opportunity. Most people are not turning that down, even if others are not so privileged, right? That you may insist, hey, everyone should have the same opportunity, but usually the individual is not going to turn that down. I didn't have a problem with that. And now, this is what happened. He had an opportunity. He gave it his best shot. His best wasn't good enough. He doesn't have a job. He didn't make the cut. That's how it goes. I don't have a problem with the way any of this played out.
Couple of things. My condolences, my heart goes out to Tim Tebow. He wanted to play sports. Obviously, for those of you who have been living under a rock and may not know, Tim Tebow is a very marketable individual. He's not somebody that's going to have a problem having a job. He definitely will have a job in this industry at this network. I hope he's back tomorrow, to be quite honest with you. I miss seeing him. I miss seeing him on television. Let's be clear. Tim Tebow is going to be fine. But this meant a lot to him. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for him. So on that level, my heart goes out to him. To piggyback off of your point and to really expound upon it, Max, here's the important point. And I'm not saying that you don't understand it. So even though I'm talking to you, I'm not really talking to you.
Understood.
I'm just talking to everybody. Okay? Let's harken back to when it was first announced that Tim Tebow was going at the age of 33, going on age 34. He just turned 34 this past Saturday. Happy belated birthday. At age 33, going on age 34, when it was first announced that Tim Tebow was going to be on the Jacksonville Jaguars going for a tight end spot, do you remember the look on our colleague's face, Ryan Clark? Everybody was just laughing and all right, Tim Tebow going for it. Ryan Clark was not laughing. Ryan Clark has nothing against Tim Tebow. Ryan Clark didn't wish him to fail or anything like that. But you could sense it, and you could transition from Ryan Clark to Damian Woody to Marcus Spears. The list goes on and on of former football players who happen to be African American. And where does that come from? What America needs to understand is that we're not talking about Tim Tebow. We all root for him individually as the person, as the man. What we were talking about is exactly what you just brought up, Max. Opportunity. People think, like you say, he didn't get the job. Well, I got news for you, Max. There's a whole bunch of black folks that never even get the opportunity, nor would ever get that opportunity ever in life. You think about this for a second. He was a Heisman Trophy winner and a star on a collegiate level as a quarterback. Came into the NFL and played as a quarterback. when he was playing quarterback, there were people that were saying, maybe you should try to be a tight end or something. He like, no, I'm a quarterback. Didn't work out. Departs from the game for 8 years. And then comes back to play a position he has never played in his life after he left the sport altogether and tried to play baseball. So as African Americans who played the sport of football, I instantly knew, although I didn't play football, I instantly knew what Ryan Clark and those guys said had nothing to do with Tebow. They wished him nothing but the best. But what they were saying was, wait a minute, this is a sport of football. You don't just come up here in this profession on the professional level. You've never done it anywhere else and think, A, you're going to get this position. B, more importantly, coaches and organizations usually wouldn't give you the opportunity because you never paid your dues by playing the position before you tried to play it at an elite level. And that's when issues of race and things of that nature come into the fray, because the opportunity is what we illuminate. It's not even the result. It's the opportunity that's accorded to others that would never be accorded to us. And when that happened, whether it's with Tim Tebow, whether it was what I pointed out with Steve Nash or whatever, I apologized on the air, Max, if you recall. Steve Nash is a wonderful man, really good dude, represented by a man that I love and revere in Bill Duffy, one of the greatest agents to ever be in this business, who swears by the character and the man that Steve Nash is. And my retort to Bill Duffy was, it's not about Steve Nash. I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about him being the embodiment of something that would never, ever, ever happen for us. And this is the latest example of it. So whether Tim Tebow got this job or not was really irrelevant. It's the fact that he got an opportunity that we can't think of a black man ever getting under those same circumstances.
Right. The question is, if you do the thought experiment, were Tim Tebow black, would he get the same opportunity if you were African American?
No.
It's hard to say, because you might say he couldn't be Tim Tebow if he was African American. Maybe
That's
his
true.
popularity never
That's
reaches
fair.
that height. Maybe. Although maybe it does. And maybe if there was an African American quarterback in college whose kind of religiosity he wore on his sleeve and was inspirational to people and won a national title, maybe if his coach got a job in the NFL and wanted to bring him in just as to boost, I don't know, culture or whatever, maybe he would have gotten that opportunity. And maybe Tim Tebow is being tokenized in this way as a symbol of white privilege, and he doesn't deserve it. And maybe the same applies to Steve Nash. That's not to say that white privilege doesn't exist, or that maybe race does play a part here. It's just to say, for example, in the example that you give of Steve Nash, that was really a relationship with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, right? That got him that job. Were he African American, would he not still have that same relationship with them, and would they still not back him, and would he still not wind up with a job? That's impossible to know, but I suspect the answer is yes there. And
but I can go history.
Yeah.
I can go history. There is no black man, Max, that has never had any experience on any level leading up to a professional job and getting a professional head coaching job or a managerial job. It has never happened for a black person, ever. Never coaching on any level and getting a job the magnitude of what Steve Nash got. That is a fact.
Bill Russell? Bill Russell was player coach. He was the greatest, the winningest player ever, became player coach. You know, while he was still active, he was given coaching responsibility of the glamour franchise of the NBA at that moment. In other words,
and Casey Jones, in fairness to the Boston Celtics,
Casey Jones was in the system. But I go with Bill Russell because he was an experienced coach when all of a sudden he's the coach. So there are some examples of it. I'm sure we could come up with more. But if the general point is this seems to be happening more for white folks than black folks, no kidding. That's been the history of our. There's no denying that levels of kind of racial disparity exist, and it shows up in the coaching ranks as well. In the case of Tim Tebow, I think that's impossible to separate out. How much of this is white privilege? In the case of Steve Nash, I suspect that it doesn't apply there. But in Tim Tebow's case, and what I've said about this in the past, Stephen A., like when we've been talking about sensitive subjects, and I have to consider how I use my own white privilege, because there are subjects that you have to be very circumspect about, and it's along racial lines, and I don't have to be as circumspect about in certain respects.
Right.
And I think to myself, I'm not going to say because I have white privilege, I'm going to just give that up. What I will do is use that privilege to insist that everyone is so privileged. And in Tim Tebow's case, like no one should be above anyone else because of their. In Tim Tebow's case, it seems to me he took advantage best he could of the opportunity and came up short. And in the end, he didn't get the job.
And I'm not faulting him for it, nor am I faulting you for utilizing your white privilege. What I'm saying is, let's just be real about it, in understanding that part of the word privilege that needs to be highlighted is that you're in an elevated position for whatever reason. And that's not something that's going to be accorded, because if it was something that was going to be accorded for all of us, then the word privilege would not apply. And so it's important to mention that. And the other thing in closing, Molly, I'd like to say this. I've heard through the grapevine that Urban Meyer was very taken aback by my position with Tim Tebow weeks ago. Okay, he said it to some people. He doesn't know that I know.
Which position?
In terms of when Tim Tebow, just pointing out how Tim Tebow got an opportunity that other people would not have had. I have a very good relationship with Tim Tebow. I love the dude. I wish him nothing but the best. I certainly wasn't rooting against him. I was just talking about a macro. I was coming from a macro perspective about the bigger issue. But the same is applicable to Urban Meyer. I want everybody to understand, I don't fault Urban Meyer for wanting to give him a chance. Urban Meyer is a phenomenal coach, one of the greatest we've ever seen. And this is a person that helped Urban Meyer achieve some of the great things that Urban Meyer achieved in his career. So him reaching back and wanting to facilitate a guy like Tim Tebow's dreams coming true, I don't fault Urban Meyer for that, but there are NFL players who do, because they'll say in the NFL, in this culture, being a head coach, it's supposed to be on merit, not relationships. But clearly that isn't always the case. That was the latest example of it. And Urban Meyer needs to be reminded of that. That's what they'll say, not me, but that's what they'll say.
There's more I want to dive into on this. We'll get into that a little bit later. Obviously, we all know Tim will go on to do tremendous things. And our next topic, I think, has a bit of a racial component, or maybe gender as well. On a more serious note, during a news conference for the Western and Southern Open, Naomi Osaka put her head down and was fighting back tears after a reporter asked Osaka's training for the upcoming hard court season was progressing, and for her thoughts on the events in Haiti, where 7.2 magnitude. 49ers coach Kyle Shanahan said Nick Bosa is expected to partake in team drills next week for the first time since tearing his ACL and damaging cartilage in his left knee last season. The team says Bosa remains on track to play week 1. Encouraging news, and Nick Bosa isn't the only big-name player returning to full health this coming season. Just to name a few, we have Dak Prescott coming back from an ankle. Obviously, he's still dealing with that shoulder. Saquon Barkley from his ACL tear, and Joe Burrow and Von Miller, who missed all of last season. Stephen A., I want to start with you. Which player returning from injury do you think is going to have the biggest redemption season bounce back year?
I think it's got a chance to be Christian McCaffrey, and I am biased with this brother. I have been a fan of his for a long time. I think he's a special all-around talent. I think he's multifaceted. He's a dual threat because he can catch passes out of the backfield just as well as he can run it. Keep in mind, he only played 3 games last year because of his injuries. Prior to that, he had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, averaging at least 4.8 yards a carry. And in the same seasons, what did he have receiving yards? I think it was like 867 yards 3 years ago, 1,005 yards last year receiving. So, he had, you're talking about a guy that had nearly back-to-back 1,000-yard season rushing and receiving. And I've often said this, and I'll say it again. And mostly in college, not necessarily the pros. If this dude were black, we'd be talking about him more. Christian McCaffrey is a sensational football player. He really, really is. And he has not received the love and the respect that he richly deserves. Everybody respects him and they know he can play, but it's like a passing note or whatever. This brother's lethal. And now that you got Sam Darnold there, and I think that Sam Darnold's going to do well, And we can't ignore the fact that Matt Rule actually did a decent job coaching the Carolina Panthers last year in his first year at the helm on the pro level. They looked better most weeks anyway. With Christian McCaffrey back in the lineup, with Sam Darnold as their quarterback, I think that Carolina has the potential to surprise some people. Maybe not even getting to the playoffs, but I think some upsets. You'll find them winning some games we thought they would lose as the season progresses. And if that happens, Christian McCaffrey's going to have everything to do with that.
Christian McCaffrey's special, I agree. Since college, been an unbelievable player. But you know what, Stephen A? Saquon Barkley's just a bigger, stronger, faster version of McCaffrey. I mean, Saquon Barkley, people forget because Saquon was running as a 20. First of all, he was the greatest running back prospect of all time. Meaning, take what he did in college, take his size, strength, work ethic, leadership, speed, and everything as a package. Whoever was like that. Barry Sanders, but 235 pounds? I mean, Saquon is different. Like McCaffrey, if you just kind of inflated McCaffrey a little bit. And as a 21-year-old rookie, behind one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL, with the remains of Eli Manning at quarterback, Saquon acquired over 2,000 yards from scrimmage as a 21-year-old rookie behind that offensive line. Now, you know who was on that team? Odell Beckham Jr. And when you have a dynamic passing attack, or at least receiver, that can open up things for a running back a little bit. Then suddenly you didn't have Odell. And Saquon got hurt, but he didn't really talk about it, wouldn't use it as an excuse. And the O-line was as bad as ever, right? And his numbers came back a little bit. And then he got hurt. So people aren't thinking about Saquon the same way. But I'm here to tell you, you think he's learned nothing since he was a rookie? If he checks out physically, the line is still no good, but it's better than it was. The Giants, again, have receiving threats now. They brought him in, and they've developed some. Daniel Jones is not the remains of a once excellent player who can't move. He's got wheels on him, and he can throw the ball. It is set up for Saquon. When you talk bounce back, I go with Saquon Barkley. He is set up, as long as he's healthy, to have a monster year.
Well, first of all, I don't recall debating that Saquon Barkley is a bigger, better version than most running backs in the National Football League, because I think he is. He's that sensational. The question is the biggest bounce-back season, and I think you have to take into account the team that you're playing for. I still got questions about the New York Giants and their offense, even though they've picked up Galladay and what have you. I still got questions about them. Just like you had questions about that, you got questions about their offensive line, and you're wondering about Daniel Jones. I don't happen to wonder as much about Sam Darnold. I don't happen to wonder as much about DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, especially with Christian McCaffrey back there and what you can do in terms of utilizing your offense to get him the football. And so because of that and what I saw from Carolina last year, I think, and especially the way they go at it in the NFC South, you know, Atlanta, New Orleans, Tampa, they air it out. They try to put up points and what have you. I think it's one of those situations where even though Saquon is Saquon and nobody is trying to throw any shade on that brother, the flip side to it is that Christian McCaffrey is something special as well. And I think he's in a better system and in a better situation at this particular moment in time to capitalize this season with a bigger bounce back than Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I'll tell you this much. Those two, when healthy, are in their own category to me. They're the most different from everybody else when they're healthy.
Yeah, I'm with Max on this one. It's clearly Saquon.
Big Blue.
Later this show, in honor
I'm so surprised. Are we sure that Saquon didn't play for Connecticut? I know they say Penn State. We sure he didn't play for Connecticut? Yeah.
Oh, I have another Connecticut shout-out coming up I can work into the show. Wait for it. Today being Christian Laettner's birthday, we asked the guys, oh, here it is. What is the most clutch moment in sports history? Might either of them say it was this shot? I cannot wait for that debate. Plus, speaking of clutch, LeBron had a few moments himself. Does the King carry so much? Can't stand the heat. Get out of the kitchen. All week, we'll be counting down Stephen A. and Max's top 5 players with the most pressure on them heading into the season. Today, we're at number 4. Mr. Smith has Matthew Stafford. Mr. Kellerman going with Lamar Jackson. So let's focus on Action Jackson, who has an MVP, but is 1-3 in those playoffs. Max, how important is it for Lamar to lead the Ravens on a deep playoff run this season?
He's got to do it. And look, Lamar Jackson's a former league MVP, unanimously voted league MVP, but he was unable to win the big one. And I mean the big one against the Steelers, the big one against the Chiefs, the big one in the playoffs. He just wasn't able. He wasn't his normal great self in those situations. And then finally, he actually, lo and behold, won a playoff game. But then ran into the Buffalo Bills. And by the way, beating the Titans is no small thing. Then ran into the Buffalo Bills, who have a guy who can throw the ball down the field accurately in Josh Allen. And when you look at what Lamar Jackson has, Stephen A., he's got a defense. They went out and got him help to improve the receiving situation. They brought in Sammy Watkins. They drafted Rashad Bateman. He has more dynamic receivers to throw the ball to now, and now he's won a playoff game. So I would say Lamar Jackson, who's done incredible things in the NFL since he's gotten to the NFL, you want to see improvement year over year. Won the playoff game. When you say deep playoff run, Molly, that's 2 wins. If you win 2 games, you're on a deep playoff run. And I think that's what the bar is now. Lamar Jackson's not a normal football player on an okay team. He is on a very strong Ravens team, especially defensively. And he is an outstanding, phenomenal football player who's already won league MVP. The standards for him are not the same as everyone else. He's got to make a playoff run this year.
Max Kellerman, who do you have as the best team in the AFC?
Chiefs.
Who's number 2? Who do you have?
Browns. Maybe the Browns.
I thought you said Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo, Cleveland, and if Lamar Jackson performs, Baltimore.
No, what I'm saying is, I thought you said Buffalo, but
okay, I can go with Buffalo.
Let's add the Browns, because if you was thinking about the Browns at number 2, it's safe to say you got them number 3, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're up there.
Okay. So my point to you is this: if I got 3 teams that's better than the Baltimore Ravens in my mind, why am I going to require that Lamar Jackson make a deep playoff run? Getting to the playoffs is one thing. Once you get there, to me, here's where the pressure lies on Lamar. We can't look at the team and say they lost because of you, because you can't throw the football. You understand? Because you can't accumulate passing yards. All you can do is run. No, we can't do that. But if Lamar goes out there and he's flinging that football, but nobody can stop Patrick Mahomes. You understand? Nobody can stop Josh Allen with Stephon Diggs. Nobody can stop Baker Mayfield with Landry and Odell Beckham Jr. with Chubb and Kareem Hunt in the backfield. Then I don't think there's any shame in that. And I'm not saying that that's what you were talking about in terms of shame. I'm just talking about this obligation that everybody wants to throw on Lamar Jackson's shoulders. Again, if football is the ultimate team sport, we're going to look for you for certain things. Like, for example, if you notice, remember when Kansas City came and they beat Houston in the AFC divisional playoff game?
Yep.
Houston was up either 17-0 or 24-0.
And then you
blinked. One or the other,
yeah.
Right? And Kansas City scored 41 straight. You know what we were talking about the next day? Patrick Mahomes and how great he is and how pathetic Houston's defense looked in trying to stop him. Nobody mentioned a single word about Deshaun Watson, because guess what? That offense for Kansas City was so potent and so special, we said damn. And I'm not saying that was the right position to take. I'm saying we said damn, because Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City were just that unstoppable. I think when you're looking at Lamar Jackson, what you're going to ask yourself is, you're going to pay attention to Kansas City, you're going to pay attention to Cleveland, you're going to pay attention to Buffalo, and we're going to look at them. And we're going to say, excuse me, Ravens, for all intent and purposes, at best might be the 4th best team in the conference.
Well, but that's what I'm saying, Stephen A. That's because of the way Lamar Jackson is perceived. If you look at the relative strength of these teams, the Ravens are an excellent defensive team. The Ravens, by the way, had a great rushing attack primarily because of Lamar Jackson and their scheme, and also because of a really good offensive line, which took a step back, and now they've tried to revamp, right? They brought in Villanueva. They did a couple things. And so the line should be better than it was, say, last year. And they brought in receivers for Lamar Jackson. No, they don't match up with the Chiefs' receivers. But Rashad Bateman is a very good all-around receiver, at least in college, and people have high hopes for him. And Sammy Watkins is a good guy to bring in. He's better than what they had. So I think if Lamar Jackson takes the next step, if we think of him differently, now you're thinking of the Ravens' relative strength differently. If you took all the quarterbacks off these teams, I wouldn't look at the Bills and say, boy, they're better than the Ravens. But I think what you're talking about speaks to our perception shift, where Lamar was MVP, the sky's the limit, and then, wait a minute, can he win in the playoffs? Well, he can, but the offense isn't dynamic enough. He needs to be a better pocket passer and all that, where Josh Allen, who's never won an MVP, by the way, took a step forward in that regard. And my point is, now Lamar's got to take another step forward because getting bounced in the second round is not good enough for him. He's too talented. The team is too good.
I feel what you're saying. All I'm trying to say to you is this. He's an electrifying running back. That's why they have, listen, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, rushing the football as a quarterback. No quarterback in history has done that. The guy is special, and we get that. But throwing the football, they had the number one running attack and the very worst dead last passing attack in the National Football League. So what I'm saying is, if that's not the case this year, if they improve with their passing game, but then they run into the playoffs, and Lamar Jackson's thrown for over 300 yards, and he's completing 65% of his passes, Max, but damn it, that defense can't stop Patrick Mahomes, and they can't stop Odell Beckham Jr. and Baker Mayfield, or they can't stop the Buffalo Bills. I'm just saying that's not a reason to look at Lamar Jackson.
I agree, of course, the details matter. The details, how they get there, matter. I'll say this ain't the Houston defense. If you put up 40 on this Ravens defense, I'd tip my cap.
Ding, ding, ding. Wrong. Houston wasn't Houston's defense when they went up against Mahomes. We never saw them look. Hold it. We never saw Houston get shellacked like that. 41 unanswered points.
Yeah.
Let me just say,
Patrick Mahomes did that.
If Mahomes or anyone, Josh Allen, anyone puts up 30, 40 unanswered points on this Ravens defense, I will simply tip my cap. I don't see that happening.
You've already tipped. You've run out of caps to tip about Patrick Mahomes. You've done enough.
That's true.
I mean, you don't have any more caps to tip to Patrick Mahomes because he does stuff that you just don't see done.
Anyone got a cap I can tip?
No. I'll wrap it up by saying this. Lamar Jackson's QBR dips from 71 in the regular season to 45 in the playoffs. I know it's a small sample, but that is a bit concerning. And I also want to point out, we were talking earlier about the odds. So the Chiefs have obviously the best odds to win the AFC. Then it goes the Bills, then the Ravens. And the Ravens also the best odds to win the AFC North ahead of the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers. We will leave it there, gentlemen. Which one player returning from injury this season has the best chance for the biggest bounce-back season? Eyeballing the Comeback Player of the Year award when we return. Plus, LeBron hasn't been shy about his hatred.
Perfect separation and support.
New England Patriots quarterback Cam Newton said Monday that Bill Belichick hasn't told him he'll start the regular season opener September 12th against the Miami Dolphins. Newton has taken all the first-team reps throughout training camp and preseason. He was asked the question because while Belichick has repeatedly said that Newton is the team's starting quarterback, he also said on the night they drafted Alabama's Mac Jones in the first round, whatever time Mac is ready to challenge and compete, then we'll see how that goes. Here's Cam.
No, you know that. You know he hasn't said that. So for you to just ask the question, it is what it is. So every single day I'm coming out here with the anticipation to just get better. And that's the only thing that I could do. So I can control that.
Damian Woody joining us now. He knows what it's like to play for the New England Patriots. Good to see you, sir.
Molly, that's an agenda. Cam Newton called it out. He hasn't named the starter.
Oh, we see things so differently. Max, I'll start with you. Is this something or nothing?
Something. It's something. Did Bill Belichick not know? Did everyone not know who was going to be the starter during Tom Brady's reign in New England? No. You knew that if Tom Brady was healthy, it wasn't going to be Matt Castle, right? We knew that. Cam Newton, who Belichick has praised to the heavens, his work ethic, his leadership, his competitiveness. You saw Bill Belichick go put his arm around him at one point last week. He knew he was battling COVID and all these kind of things. Cam Newton, former MVP, former best player in the game, guy who came off of a catastrophic injury, faced COVID, no practices, no preseason, facility shut down because of COVID, lost his whole defense, no weapons. That's why Tom Brady left. 2 plays away from winning 9 games last year. That Cam Newton hasn't been named the starter. He's competing with a rookie. How often does Bill Belichick play rookie quarterbacks? No, this is something.
What, Dane?
Max, let me tell you something, man. Playing up in New England for 5 years, all that what you said doesn't even matter, okay? You're talking about the same Bill Belichick when I was there that cut Lloyd Malloy who was our team captain, cut him the week 1 against Buffalo Bills. This man he doesn't care about the accolades. None of that matters, okay? At the end of the day, what is the upside in Bill Belichick naming a week 1 starter? We're like 3 weeks away or whatever it is from our first regular season game. These guys are competing right now. It does the New England Patriots organization no good to go out here and say which quarterback is going to be week 1 starter. You're talking about 2 different quarterbacks with 2 contrasting styles. We know what Cam Newton is. We know he's a former league MVP. We know he's a dual threat guy. Okay, now he's competing against a rookie who's more the traditional pocket passer along the lines of Tom Brady. So in that sense, in and of itself, it makes no sense for Bill Belichick to say, okay, Cam Newton's a starter. You wait until week 1, literally the week of week 1, to go out there and name your starting quarterback because the competition is that close up in New England.
I don't disagree with either of you, Max, Damian. What I would tell you is my focus is in a different place. It's in a different place from what we're seeing from you guys right now, okay? Here's what we have to accept. And could y'all take the Patriots off the screen? Because I want to look at Max and Damian when I say this. Let's understand what's transpired. Mac Jones has surprised a few people. He ain't surprised me. Because you know I roll Alabama all day, every day. You understand what I'm saying? So I saw what he did last year. All right, I'm the guy, Damian, that went and spoke to the team when Nick Saban had me come down there and speak to the team.
To rave reviews, by the way.
That's I am special at giving speeches. I must admit, I am a great speech giver. But here's the deal. I'm only kidding. I'm not let other people judge that. But in all seriousness, Mac Jones, he can ball. And so for Nick Saban and Bill Belichick to be aligned in their thinking as football minds, and for Mac Jones to come from that system, it's not just from a football perspective. It's a demeanor, how you carry yourself, your approach to the game. You know, what do you say, how you study film, the kind of things you look for, all of these different things. Here's my point. He gets to New England. And his footsteps, he ain't tippy-toeing. He's stomping because he can make the throws. And he looks the part. And you got Cam Newton, who was the successor to Tom Brady. First of all, there was never a snowball's chance in hell that he was going to be Tom Brady. We understand that. As great as Cam Newton has been, he ain't no Tom Brady. That's number 1. Number 2, because you're the direct successor to Tom Brady, from a human perspective, that's certainly going to come, if not with expectations, then it's an elevated level of cynicism. Then you had last year because you got COVID and you went through what you went through and the team missed the playoffs. You have that as your backdrop. And now here you are in front of the media and the media is asking you about whether you starting or not. Understand what Cam did. What Cam suspected is what we are wondering whether or not Naomi Osaka was suspected because of what her agent said. In Cam Newton's case, it's a bit more flagrant. I'm talking about based purely on a press conference yesterday. You could tell he was saying to the media, why are you asking me this question? You know good and damn well Bill Belichick didn't tell me that. You asking me this why? What you looking for from me? Because you trying to start something, okay? Because in essence, and correct me if I'm wrong, Damian, Cam is standing up there, feeling, I shouldn't say knowing because you don't know what's in other people's heart, but feeling at his core that a lot of cats asking him those questions want Mac Jones to be the starter. They don't want him there. That's how he's feeling. And I think all of that stuff is meshed in there.
Well, listen, I'll say this, okay? Even if Bill told Cam Newton that he was a starter, he wouldn't say, because that's just how the program is in New England. You don't give away state secrets up in New England, okay? It's just everything is about the opponent. Keep as much information in-house as possible. But listen, Mac Jones is not playing around. Mac Jones is on his tail.
That's why it's
And
something.
I think with Josh, I think Mac Jones fits Josh McDaniels' system, which had Tom Brady for all those years, more so than what Cam Newton does for the New England Patriots. So if it's close, I think it goes to Mac Jones.
And that's
Wow.
why it's something.
Okay.
So do
Made
I.
my point.
Dropping the
So do
mic
I.
on that where it goes to Mac Jones because we have a hard out. Damian, that was strong. Thank you so much, guys. When we come back, expectations are heavy in Baltimore this season. Max Kellerman says Lamar Jackson needs to lead the Ravens to a deep playoff run. But Stephen A says pump the brakes. Stay here. Aaron Rodgers with some interesting words as well. We'll get into that too. Osaka's father is a
But sorry, I'm thinking.
I think we can move on to the next question, Naomi. Do you want to move on to the next question?
No, I'm actually very interested in that, like, point of view. So if you could repeat that, that'd be awesome.
The question was that you're not especially fond of dealing with the media, especially in this format. You have suggested there are better ways to do it, that we'd like to try to explore that. My question, I guess, was you also have outside interests beyond tennis that are served by having the platform that the media presents to you. My question is, how do you think you might be able to best balance the two?
I mean, for me, I feel like this is something that I can't really speak for everybody. I can only speak for myself. But ever since I was younger, I've had a lot of media interest on me, and I think it's because of my background as well as, you know, how I play. Because in the first place, I'm a tennis player. That's why a lot of people are interested in me. So I would say in that regards, I'm quite different to a lot of people, and I can't really help that there are some things that I tweet or some things that I say that kind of create a lot of news articles or things like that. And I know that it's because I've won a couple Grand Slams and I've gotten to do a lot of press conferences that these things happen. But I would also say, like, I'm not really sure how to balance it too. Like, I'm figuring it out at the same time as you are, I would say.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. We're going to do 4 more questions, or 4 more journalists. We're going to go Courtney, Jeff, Stuart, and then Ben Rothenberg. So Courtney, please go ahead and state your name and publication, please. Thank you.
Courtney Nguyen, WTA Insider. Hello, Naomi. Hopefully it's okay if I ask a couple of tennis questions. The first one is just how the training has been and how your preparation has been for the summer hard court swing. And the second one is just related to your tweet over the weekend, related to what's going on in Haiti. Just what your reaction is to the news there. Thank you. Sorry.
No, you're super good.
Okay, I think we're just going to take a quick break. Just we'll be back in one moment.
Osaka's agent was quick to stand up for his client, issuing a statement through a freelance reporter for the New York Times. The bully at the Cincinnati Enquirer is the epitome of why player-media relations are so fraught right now. Everyone on that Zoom will agree that his tone was all wrong and his sole purpose was to intimidate. Really appalling behavior. And this insinuation that Naomi owes her off-court success to the media is a myth. Don't be so self-indulgent. So a lot to break down there. Stephen A., I'll start with you. Obviously, the reporter inferring that she isn't crazy about the media. She cleared that up. She said that it's the timing that bothers her. It's not the format. And she said she draws massive attention, not just because of her play, but obviously her ethnic background. And we can see right there, she was authentic. She's trying to figure it out, but the weight of the world appears to be on her shoulders. What was your reaction to that press conference?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, you know, our heart goes out to her. I mean, listen, we've talked about this weeks ago. I can't applaud her enough because what happens is that she's come out and she's acknowledged, at least some of the things that trouble her. And so when you're honest and forthcoming about whatever issues, whatever emotional or mental challenges that you're facing, and you've put yourself out there like that, I mean, we use words like courage and brave, and we throw those things out from time to time. But in some cases, more so than others, it's truly applicable. And in her case, it really, really is. And I applaud her for that, because there's a level, it does take a level of courage to just open yourself up to folks that you don't know or you may not trust. But because of the profession that you've chosen, you're going to have to deal with them. And as a result, you were just open about, what ails you or what troubles you. And I understand and I appreciate that. And more importantly, she stepped away from the French Open, if I remember correctly, because she didn't want to be a distraction. And so that's a tribute to her. My issue is with the agent.
100%.
My issue is with the agent. He is so off base with what he said. I can't say enough. Now, let me say this. I don't know the reporter at the Cincinnati Enquirer. For all I know, maybe he has some history of, with his columns or whatever, being somewhat intimidating or whatever the case may be. Maybe he came there with a reputation that precedes him per se, and they knew about it. Maybe that's what it was. We don't know. We don't know. We don't specifically know all that she's going through because remember, she's relatively young. She's highly successful. She's being pulled in a multitude of directions. Everybody wants something from her. And when you have folks who manage talent, for example, you've got some insight into all the things their life entails and all they have to endure. And maybe just the collective obligations of her life or whatever she feels in her mind are those obligations are just so heavy on her that contributes to things as well. I don't know. No, we really don't know. But I know this, just based off of that press conference, I thought the reporter was incredibly fair and incredibly delicate with how he asked the question. Then the moderator said, "Would you like to move on?" And Naomi Osaka said, "No, I'd like to try and answer that question." Then afterwards, a young lady comes in and says, "Hopefully you don't mind. I can get back. I can ask you about tennis." And then she asked a question about tennis, and then on the back end of it, added something about whatever she had tweeted about Haiti in light of that earthquake, that ravaged that nation. And that is when she got emotional. I'm trying to figure out what the reporter did wrong. I didn't see that. And so for the agent to come out with a statement, basically accusing the journalist of bullying her, I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Because if folks are going to side with that, then essentially, if you are a journalist and that is what we classify as bullying, then as a journalist, you get to go up there and the only thing you could say is, what would you like to talk about? To anybody. Because I didn't get that from the question.
Stephen A.,
and that's why I have a problem with the agent. I had a problem with the agent.
We see this nearly or maybe exactly identically. Let me start with Naomi Osaka. Tennis stars at her level do not lead typical lives. None of us can really relate to the pressure faced at such a young age, traveling the world, insulated and isolated in one way and another way, seeing everything. At such a young age, the amount of media and money involved, and I can't even imagine the pressure. And this goes for all these tennis stars at a certain level who are identified young. Just the work you have to put into it to get to that level, let alone the media attention and fans. It's unimaginable for the rest of us. So that's the first thing. And Naomi Osaka has not only achieved at an extremely high level in tennis and comes across to me always as a genuine and likable person, but has been forthright about what she's facing in that regard, and also the steps she thinks sometimes she needs to take to manage that. And she's also been public, like she clearly wants to be a force for good in the world. And that includes on racial issues and issues of mental health and all those things. The reporter did not seem to be attacking any of that or attacking her. It wasn't ad hominem. It was, and the idea that it was bullying, to me from what I saw, is utter nonsense. It's such nonsense that the agent's statement either betrays a lack of comprehension or he's, an intentionally kind of dishonest point of view. She was interested in the question, Stephen A. So John Sawatsky, the old interview guru at ESPN, would have said, if I asked a question like that, he would have told me, you made a couple mistakes here, you baked an assumption into the question, right? You also asked two questions, a double-barreled question, you shouldn't do that. But the gist of it, the spirit of it, was, hey, I understand you don't really like these kind of press conferences. And he never said, as the agent said, didn't suggest, stated. The agent said that he thinks the media is responsible for her success. Wait a minute, Molly. Let me finish. Let me just finish the thought. And obviously you feel otherwise. I didn't hear that at all. What he did suggest was the media can be useful to someone who has a platform to amplify their platform, to deliver messages that Naomi Osaka seems interested in delivering. She was both emotionally and intellectually engaged by the question. I thought it was a thoughtful question. I thought she gave a thoughtful response, and it struck a nerve with her, I'm sure, because I'm sure it dredged up. Every time she tries to do something good, she sends out a social media message or anything. I'm sure she deals with backlash and increased scrutiny, increased pressure. Whatever it was, it dredged up emotion for her. Nothing there was untoward or out of line. The agent's statement calling the reporter a bully frames it in a way that, based on what we saw, simply is not the case.
Well, I would want that agent in a foxhole with me. Don't you think, though, gentlemen, there was a bit of an agenda by the reporter? It felt like he was leading the witness to a sense. There wasn't much objectivity. You don't like us, but you need us. And I think that's what the agent was speaking to.
I see. That's why you're objecting to, because he did say need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I didn't hear that. Okay, I got it.
So that's where
I didn't hear that.
That's where I feel like there was a bit of an agenda on the reporter's part. It wasn't just an objective question. Why don't you like dealing with the media, but you need us too?
Molly, wouldn't you say that it's fair to say that someone who wants to message things does need, even with social media, mainstream media, to amplify the message?
Because there's social media.
You don't think that mainstream media
I think you could go viral with social media. Look at Stephen A.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that I don't know if we know that's what he was talking about. In other words, what he's saying is that because you have a lot of people, unfortunately, and you know this as well as I do, as well as you do too, Max, there are a lot of people that interpret social media as the media as well. You know what I'm saying? In other words, you use that platform to disseminate a message. So in other words, we don't know. Again, I don't know the reporter. I don't know anything about him. Yeah. You know, I was told this morning that he had, some kind of history of being an antagonist. I don't know. I've read a couple of his columns over the years, but I don't know him at all. All I'm talking about is looking at the press conference. I thought the two people that asked her the question were delicate in how they asked it to her. And so when he says bullying, and, I'm saying, wait a minute now, I didn't get that. Now, if she said that, to me, she's entitled to interpret it any way she so chooses, because she's the one up there on the podium. She's probably seen these individuals before, and she, obviously going through all the things that she's going through, she is perfectly entitled to interpret it any way she chooses. But for him to give a statement to the New York Times and accuse the reporters of bullying based on what we heard, only what we heard,
I totally
That was
agree.
my issue. I didn't get that from those two questions, Molly. I'm not saying I know anything about his agenda. I don't know anything about what he's done to them in the past or anything. Just watching that press conference, I didn't
felt like
get
he had
that
a bit
from
of an agenda.
I totally agree with your characterization, Stephen A. I totally agree with that. Not only was it not bullying, it went out of its way to be considerate. The question, the way it was phrased, even when the reporter asked, I guess, he's trying to soften everything he says and trying to, and I think that's one of the reasons she wanted to engage with the question. Molly, in terms of the agenda, I do think, I mean, you may argue that a reporter always has an agenda in a question they ask. They're trying to get information. But I agree with you if you want to say she doesn't need. That's right. Because you can get a message out there without mainstream media. But mainstream media will amplify. And so his basic point was, how do you, he's after you, I think it's genuine curiosity, balance the fact that you don't like these kind of press conferences with the idea that it can be useful to you.
Max,
that was the gist of it.
Max, let me give Molly the last word by saying this to you, Molly. And I asked this to you as a question. Yeah, we all sit here on this show. We've all been in the business quite a long time, and we ask questions. You're the moderator of this show. You ask questions all the time, you know, and you've been doing it for years. Right here, you were at the NFL Network before this. You've asked questions for many, many years. Just based on those two questions. Nothing else, no background information, no anything. Just watching it, because that's me. Because again, I don't know who was asking the questions, and I don't know any history. Just based on those two questions, did you peel bullying from that?
I think if I was there, I would have said, how are you handling your media responsibilities? It would have been more objective. That's where I think it was more of an agenda where he was looking to elicit a certain response. I don't think I would characterize it as bullying, but I also don't think it was objective journalism either. So that's how I would explain it if I'm answering your question there, Stephen A. I do want to point out one other thing, though. She did, and the producers are in my ear. I do know we need to go, but obviously this has been a great discussion. She did step away, and she came back and she answered more questions. And I also want to mention, because as women, it's so quick for people to say, oh, you're so emotional, you're crying. Part of the reason I think she might have also been upset was she was asked about Haiti. She has family there, and obviously the devastation, not just about media responsibility. So when we talk about, the weight of the world, and she was honest, and as you said, Max, she was thoughtful and said, I'm figuring it out. And,
great answer.
Clearly that's what she's trying to do. Guys, if we have time, we'll revisit this a bit more later, but appreciate the discussion. Things getting interesting in Foxborough. Bill Belichick has yet.
First Take hasn't even started yet, and already we got about half the show set in motion. Joel Embiid gets a big max extension. We'll talk about that. And Tim Tebow cut by the Jacksonville Jaguars. No pleasure in saying that, but there's a lot to discuss. First Take's in the house. The whole crew is here. Holla at your boys and girls.
A lot of people I've kind of forgotten who I am.
Stephen A., you said it. So much breaking news today on a Tuesday. Good day, everybody.
I thought it was a quiet day in the middle of August.
No, sir. Plenty to get to. Good morning to you, Max. Good morning, Stephen A. Guys, let's get it. So let's start with the breaking news out of Philadelphia. Sixers star center Joel Embiid is finalizing a 4-year, $196 million Supermax contract extension. That, according to Ramona Shelburne, the extension keeps Embiid under contract with the Sixers through the 26-27 season for a total of $261 million. Embiid, who represented himself in the negotiations, became eligible for a Supermax extension this summer after finishing second in MVP voting and second-team All-NBA with averages of more than 28 points, 10 rebounds in 51 regular season games. This is a fully guaranteed deal, and he'll have a player option on the final year of the deal. So Stephen A., clearly no concerns about his health. Tell me this, how big of a deal is this for the Sixers?
Well, Molly, the first thing I would tell you is that that's not true. There are some concerns about his health. It's just that it can't matter to the Philadelphia 76ers. He's such a superstar caliber player. If it were not for durability issues, we'd be calling him the best big man in basketball instead of Jokic in Denver. we all know how surreal, how big time Joel Embiid is. His game is just something special to behold, and there's no question about it. But then when you take into account his personality and how magnetic it is, he's willing to talk trash to opponents. He's willing to engage the fan base and get them, rallied and involved. He's an incredibly inspirational player as well. He's the cornerstone of this franchise, no question about it. And when you take into account what transpired during the playoffs, what you see during the regular season, there's no fall off in the playoffs. Whereas with Ben Simmons, you looked at him, and even though you know what he's capable of doing, and this dude is a jump shot away from being the quality of a LeBron James, but he just doesn't have that. And then he ran away from the basketball when it really, really counted in the postseason. That's something else that elevated the stature of Joel Embiid in the eyes of the Philadelphia 76ers organization. So this was a foregone conclusion. They absolutely had to give him this money. He's well deserving of it. He's the cornerstone of their franchise. He's a star. Everything goes through him in the city of Philadelphia, and they would have it no other way. Congratulations to him. It's well deserved. Injuries or no injuries, you had to lock him up because he is everything to this organization.
Embiid, were it not for the injuries, you could say he's the most perfect center ever, right? He checks every single box except for the injuries. He's like Olajuwon is amazing, right? But Embiid's even bigger. Like he's a taller, he's a genuine 7-foot wide body who can play with his back to the basket, who can shoot from the outside, who can play defense even in the modern NBA at an elite level. And he's a big. What can this guy not do on the floor except for stay healthy? Because had he played a few more games, Stephen A, maybe a half dozen more games this year, he's the MVP instead of Jokic. He's also a great defender. He's great on both ends of the floor. And let me put this in perspective for you. How big time is Embiid? Remember when I was proposing a Damian Lillard trade to the Sixers? Lillard is a superstar. Embiid is the one in that combination. Embiid is still the best player on that team, even if Lillard is on that team. Now, I know the stat I'm about to give you, and Hembo tweeted it out earlier today. I saw this a couple days ago in Sixers Twitter. The stat I'm about to give you is a little unfair because all the retired players' points per 36 minutes averages, Stephen A., include the declining years of their career. Like if you look at MJ's, that includes his years with the Wizards. That wasn't MJ anymore. He averaged only 20 points his final season. He was 57,000 years old. Embiid hasn't reached that stage yet. But do you know who the all-time leader points per 36 minutes in the NBA is? It would happen to be Embiid, almost a full point ahead of Michael Jordan. He ain't going to end his career that way. But at this moment, how do you ever? He's had a bunch of years in his career already. And he's there. Embiid is a crazy great talent, obviously worthy of the extension, and as you pointed out, and many others have, by the way, even has a great larger-than-life personality, like the next Shaquille O'Neal in that sense, the big man with a big, lovable personality. The only issue is the injuries, and Stephen A., that's why he went third overall out of the draft. Like, it's been that way since he entered the league.
Well, I will say this. He's not the most perfect big man in NBA history. I'm not going to go that far because on many, many occasions, as skilled and as gifted and as special as he is, one of the impediments to his success is the fact that he doesn't always play big. Sometimes he plays small, meaning stepping away from the basket. So I'd like to see his big behind in the post dominating smaller dudes on a more regular basis because we all know he can whenever he wants to. He just chooses to step away from the basket a little bit more. That is something that will qualify as an imperfection to me. Having said all of that, I think this is the biggest point to be made, Max. When you consider what has transpired with the Philadelphia 76ers all off season since Ben Simmons' horrific performance in the playoffs, particularly his free throw shooting, more specifically than anything else, shooting like 30%, 31% for the free throw line, how horrific that was. Remember, the cornerstones of the franchise was a two-headed monster instead of one in people's eyes for a while. It was Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. The fact that Ben Simmons is such a huge question mark also is something that has elevated the cachet of Joel Embiid, because even Joel Embiid said something about how Ben Simmons had performed once the season expired, which is one of the reasons why people feel like you're hearing around NBA circles that Ben Simmons doesn't want to come back. I haven't spoken to his people, so I don't know how true that is, but you're hearing that he doesn't want to come back to Philadelphia, that he might not even show up to training camp. I don't know whether that's true or not. I just know that that's the scuttlebutt. That's what's been circulating over the last 2 or 3 weeks or so. But if you're Ben Simmons, one of the reasons it's believed that he's probably feeling that way is not just because of the trade talks, but because when Doc Rivers was asked post-game, what could Ben Simmons do, or could he lead you to a championship? Doc Rivers said, I honestly don't know. And Joel Embiid threw some question marks up in there as well. And so as a result of that, you look at the Joel Embiid, and this is a guy that's qualified to say that because he's on the court with you. And that's not a problem he has. He doesn't shy away from the moment. He wants the ball with the game on the line. He delivers the goods more often than not. He's good for at least 25 and 10 a night. This brother is that special, and he's got a magnetic personality to go along with it, which makes him incredibly, incredibly marketable in one of the top 5 markets in the United States of America. All those things come together to really highlight and justify what Joel Embiid.
Real quick, about your point on Simmons, the difference really being Simmons plateaued at a certain point. There's a part of his game that's missing that he has not fixed. Embiid has gotten better and better and better. That does not happen by accident. That only happens by putting in the work.
He's popular. And by popular, I don't mean just well-known. He's well-liked. He's well-liked. People, to talk to Joel Embiid, you actually have a good time listening to this guy talk about basketball and talking about some of his contemporaries and, that he's got to go up against while playing the game. I mean, this dude, he brings it in every way in the sport of basketball.
Absolutely. And a very bold move to negotiate your own contract at such a young age. All right, guys, more breaking news. It's Tebow time. No more. You have that end. You have that many sort of games on your legs. You're not looking forward to more games, but I think he understands the context of the league. So I think we wanted to get one more season under our belt that wasn't a pandemic season so we could really get a sense of how it works. But I'm more open to tinkering with it if necessary. And Woj just tweeting out, guys, too. Oh, we'll get into that in a little bit. But he's previewing some of the Christmas games, so we'll get into that slate in just a moment. Stephen A., should LeBron have this much influence?
No, not a damn bit of it. Not on this issue. This is the ultimate the elder statesman of the league. He's the iconic brand in the NBA. LeBron James is in a class by himself, and what he has done for the game of basketball is to be incredibly appreciated, as always. And when he is gone, we will definitely miss him. Make no mistake about it. But that's separate and aside from this issue. The play-in tournament is about what it takes to appeal to the fans. LeBron James is a basketball player. He's the man, but he's one player. When the Lakers were bounced in the first round, we still had to watch Utah and the Clippers and Denver and all of these others. We had to watch everybody. We had to watch the Phoenix Suns. We had to watch all of this stuff going on, okay? And then the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference. We had to watch Atlanta and Milwaukee. We had to watch Milwaukee and Brooklyn or whatever. LeBron James wasn't on the court, and there was nothing he could do about ingratiating himself with those fans in those respective cities to see the teams that they wanted to see and to see the players that they wanted to see play. LeBron James is one player. And so if you're the National Basketball Association and you decide because of bubble play a few months earlier and all of this other stuff that we're going to have a play-in tournament, and it's lights out when we saw Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors going up against the Memphis Grizzlies, and we saw the other play-in games, we were fascinated by it. We were turned on by it. It was definitely a plus for the National Basketball Association. There is evidence that shows it was a plus. It was good for the business because it was good for the fans. The fans gravitated to it. We loved what we were watching and what we were seeing. I wasn't a proponent, Maxie. Remember, initially, I was the one against it. Remember that? And you liked it. And I said, wait a minute, Max. I had to pull my Austin Power, the spy who shagged me. I was like, yo, I got to know Dr. Evil with Mini-Me. I like, wait a minute now. I got to rethink this because I absolutely, positively loved it. Yeah. And the people loved it. And so to me, regardless of how LeBron James feels, if you're just asking him about an idea that has never happened, then his say should be definitely significant, no doubt. But when there is evidence that has already been provided that shows it's in the best interest of the league, there's nothing to talk about here. We have spoken, and our voice as fans matter even more than LeBron's in this particular situation because we like what we were watching and we've already seen the evidence that it works.
I think LeBron is wrong about this, and I especially, Stephen A., think he's wrong. Remember, and I don't know if he was meaning this literally. Remember, he said whoever came up with this idea should be fired.
Yes.
You shouldn't play like that with someone's job. But especially not when it's a good idea, LeBron. It was obviously a good idea. It was super exciting, the whole thing. That's different. Whether or not I agree with LeBron is different than asking, should he have influence? He should have influence. He's earned it. Stephen A., you bring up constantly what goes along with being the face of the NBA, right? With being a franchise player. And you harp on this as it relates to Kawhi, as it relates to others. LeBron has done that. He took the mantle from really, there's been no one in the NBA on that level in terms of representing the entire brand since Michael Jordan. Apologies Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant and many others who certainly had that position, but not undisputed position for as long as LeBron has had it, like Jordan. And he's represented the brand like A++. Yes, and has absolutely. A tremendous amount of pressure and everything. He has earned influence. And here's the other thing. It's important to respect LeBron when you disagree with him. Because I've disagreed with him before. I'm like, I respect his point of view, but come on, LeBron. Remember when he was talking about how bad the condensed schedule was and what a risk they're taking in terms of injury, basically, this season? I was like, wait up, LeBron. Last year, the COVID year, you did what you had to do. This year, they took 10 games off the schedule. This year, really? You're going to complain about it now? But he was right. Because unlike any postseason in the history of the NBA in my lifetime, did injury play such a big part in who won and lost? Best teams didn't win.
I still don't think he was right.
Right. Yeah. Okay, fine. You might not. But I think he had a point. The point is, here I disagree with him strongly, as you do. I think the evidence has shown he's wrong. But if he's saying this, I'm sure he has good reasons, and those reasons should be heard. It doesn't mean he gets to decide, but he should be heard out.
See, let me get at you about something here. Because what you have done is do what LeBron James' camp is notorious of doing. See, do I need to put the ticker tape up when you talking now, Max? Do I need to do that? Maybe. You understand what I'm saying? Columbia grad, incredibly astute historian. Do I need to put all of that up now?
Because
see, now you acting like he the victim now. No, Max, I did not say LeBron does not matter and he should not have any say or whatever. Period. I'm not speaking generically. I'm not speaking overall from a Mac. I'm talking about this one subject matter. Why? Because we've already heard what he had to say. And we already have deduced how wrong he was. And so my point is, you take all of those things into consideration. What else is there for you to say? As far as I'm concerned, we heard you. You wanted somebody fired over that, okay? Because you thought that's how awful the idea was. We've seen the idea. We've seen it, we've seen it reach fruition. We love what we saw, and we're the ones watching. So that's number one.
There's a little different. There's something, one thing, if I may interject.
Sure.
There is a little difference here, which is at the time, you could take it with a grain of salt because the Lakers looked like they were heading for a play-in game. So you could hear that as self-serving. Like, okay, yeah, LeBron, now you don't like the play-in game because you have to play in a play-in game, right? Maybe you lose the play-in game. That'd be bad. But here, based on what the Lakers did in the offseason, it's hard for me to imagine them playing in the play-in game. I don't think that's his fear anymore. So to me, it takes that off. Any kind of thought that maybe he's being self-interested here, selfishly, that is now off the table for me.
I'm not even questioning the self-interest. I'm simply saying when you've made your opinions known and you are flagrantly wrong about it on that particular subject, as it pertains to that particular subject, we've heard you. We disagree. We think we have the evidence to support why we disagree, and we're moving forward with or without you. Period. And I think that's what I'm talking about here. And you can't sit up there and look at it from this perspective and say, well, you know what, LeBron, because of what he has done for the game and what he has meant to the game, you know what, he should have say. I'm saying, yes, 99% of the time, you're absolutely right. Until you already had your say. And when you are, the evidence is clear how much everybody was gravitating towards those playing games.
Okay. All right, fine. Yeah, I agree. The evidence, I think, argues against LeBron. It's going to kill Adam Silver to sit down and hear him out and tell him. He can tell him that in a meeting. Okay, LeBron, you out of respect, we sat down. I wanted to hear.
You know, be in LA. You know what I'm saying? Because it's Brooklyn versus the Lakers. It's Brooklyn versus the Lakers. I guess I'm going to be at the Staples Center. I mean, I ain't missing that one. I ain't missing that game right there. This is what it's all about right here. Do y'all understand?
No snow on Christmas for you, Stephen A.
I mean, listen to me and the family, me and the girls, we're going to be right here in L.A. They'll get over it. They'll love it. But here's the deal. Do y'all have any idea how beautiful this season is going to be? I got 6 legitimate contenders in the Western Conference alone. Okay, you got both LA squads, you got Denver, okay, you got Utah. I mean, Lord have mercy. I'm just looking at some of the stuff going on in the NBA. This might be the best season. I can't think of a season that I've looked forward to more. Because in the East, you got Milwaukee, Brooklyn's coming, all right? Philly can't be ignored. Atlanta put us on notice. Miami just got Kyle Lowry. Not Mike Lowry from Bad Boys, Will Smith. Not Mike Lowry. Kyle Lowry. They got Kyle Lowry with Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo coming back in the crew. Okay, I'm just looking. Boston got a new coach. You still got Tatum and Brown. You retained Smart, who, by the way, I think I know he couldn't get more because of Max. Should have got more. I think he's worth more than the $77 million personally over 4 years. But having said all that, I can honestly tell you, I don't know. And knowing how badly Brooklyn and how badly America wants Brooklyn, LA, how badly Brooklyn probably wants LA, and LA probably wants Brooklyn, I don't know if I've ever looked more forward to an NBA season than the one we are about to embrace. I can't wait.
Well, listen, Stephen Naismith, while it is true that you love some NBA basketball, and this game is taking place Christmas Day, Lakers-Nets in L.A., you also are very, very fond of Aaron Rodgers, that bad man. In fact, you have branded yourself practically, when you think of Aaron Rodgers, I think of you saying that bad man. And the Cleveland Browns are playing the Packers also Christmas Day. Maybe you should go to Green Bay. Maybe you should go to Green Bay. You know what? I think it's best that I go to L.A. for the Lakers and Nets. And I'm a Lakers fan after all. And as such a big Rodgers guy, maybe you should go to Green Bay for Green Bay and Cleveland. What do you think?
You know, I went to a doctor. I got examined by a doctor earlier, earlier in the week. And they just said that, my body with the cold weather, it's not really. I see. We don't vibe. It's not
West Indian blood.
So it's important for my health, my spirit.
I should go to the Green Bay. Hey, Stephen, I want to show you something.
It's good that I'm in LA and I watch Green Bay and Cleveland on television. That's what the plan will be.
Here's the thing. I don't think there are any contenders in the Western Conference or the Eastern Conference if Brooklyn and LA are healthy. I think they're pretenders. Great teams. But if LA is healthy, I think they're going to the finals.
I think if Kawhi gets healthy, the Clippers are contenders.
Everyone else is pretenders.
I think if Kawhi gets healthy, I'm assuming that Kawhi
and Jamal Murray gets healthy, Denver's a contender.
But I don't think they're ultimately, I don't think they're going to beat the Lakers. I agree there are more contenders in the Western Conference. If Brooklyn's healthy, good luck, everybody. Good luck, everybody. But I want to show everyone. Can you see this? This is what SportsCenter put out on Twitter. And you have Brooklyn. You're seeing.
You can hold it up.
Look at that. Kyrie and KD and James Harden and Blake Griffin, and LA, LeBron James, Carmelo, and Westbrook and AD. And guys, I guess Carmelo is the one farthest from his prime, and you can still see he can play. Blake Griffin seemed to fall off, but then he posterized Giannis, so actually his game is probably as effective as ever.
I have a problem with that photo.
What's that?
I have a problem with that photo.
What's that?
What the hell is Blake Griffin doing being the most prominent face on that picture?
I'm saying, I like the competition of the first. I hear you. If you want to do it relative to their importance, he'd be the smallest.
It should have been KD or LeBron or listen, even Russ or Kyrie.
What are you, the Grinch who stole
Griffin is the most prominent face?
Stop being the Grinch who stole sports Christmas.
He is the Grinch.
This is a great picture.
You're
nitpicking. My point is, like Westbrook, LeBron, AD, Harden, KD, and Kyrie are all more or less as good as they've ever been. Like they're still among the very best players in the game. And Blake and Carmelo are still really good. Like,
is that your screensaver?
Maybe I should make it. What a game, Christmas Day. What a treat. And then Browns and Packers too. What, like, Christmas can't come soon enough. Like, Christmas indeed.
I will say this. I do have a complaint. Okay.
What?
First of all, let's make sure if we're the Brooklyn Nets, let me send a message to Sean Marks and Steve Nash and the crew. Could you make sure you wear your black uniforms? I don't know where the hell y'all got those blue Nets uniforms from. What the hell is that about? Get
Sky blue and red.
You in Brooklyn. You in Brooklyn, okay? It's black or white. Black or white. The white with the black trims or the black with the white trims. That's the outfit. Get rid of them damn blue uniforms.
Brooklyn was
looking
always
like you
more
showing
colorful.
up to a Carolina game or something.
Brooklyn was always more colorful than Uptown. If we're talking about New York style, it was Uptown that kept it monochromatic and dark a lot of times. Brooklyn was always more colorful.
Brooklyn's one of the boroughs. It's one of the boroughs, okay? We ain't down with that little sky blue look.
Yeah, I'm with
the
you,
red
Stephen
letters
A.
and stuff.
Like,
you ain't in East Rutherford, New Jersey. You ain't in East Rutherford, New Jersey anymore. You in Brooklyn, all right? Get your colors right. Get your colors right. Get rid of that blue.
Navy
Black
wouldn't
or
kill
white. Black or white, period. That's right, Molly.
Navy wouldn't kill.
You see what Molly wearing?
Is Brooklyn in that?
All black, everything. All right, still to come, guys, on First Take with his release. Is this now officially the end for the tight end Tim Tebow? Stephen A's parting thoughts.